Hello, guys. Welcome you all to the Insights into Money podcast. Let's start today's discussion, folks, on the topic deep work, deep pockets, how extreme focus multiplies your income. Imagine someone hands you a pill every single morning before you start working and says, take this. It's going to temporarily drop your IQ by about 15 points for the rest of the day.
Yeah, you would immediately throw it in the trash. I mean, no one would voluntarily impair their own intelligence like that.
Right, exactly. Yet the reality is that millions of us are essentially swallowing that pill every single workday just by leaving our email open in the background or keeping our phones face up on our desks.
We really do treat our attention like it's this cheap, infinite resource.
We do. But our mission in this deep dive is to show you that the exact opposite is true. We're going to unpack the hidden economic, neurological, and, strategic forces that make intense, distraction-free concentration the ultimate wealth multiplier today.
Because in a world where the average worker is constantly fractured, mastering your focus is no longer just some neat productivity hack.
No, it's the definitive dividing line between career stagnation and unlocking truly exponential earning potential. So where do we even begin?
Well, I think we have to look at how the landscape of what the market actually pays for has fundamentally shifted underneath our feet. Decades ago, simply possessing a basic white-collar skill set was enough to guarantee a comfortable income.
You were just paid for your knowledge, basically.
Exactly. But today, information is ubiquitous. The architecture of the modern workplace has completely changed the rules of the game. And honestly, it's actively turning against the very people operating within it.
So what does that modern workplace architecture actually look like under the hood? Because from the outside, it feels like it's been intentionally engineered to destroy our attention spans.
Oh, it really is. We are operating in the absolute peak of the distraction economy.
Mm.
Let's look at the actual data. Right now, the average knowledge worker spends 60% of their day on what is categorized as shallow work.
Wait, 60%?
Yeah, 60%. This isn't problem solving or creating value. This is work about work. It's coordinating schedules, attending status meetings, sending updates.
Right, the stuff that requires almost zero intense cognitive strain.
Exactly. And layered on top of that, these workers are facing an average of 56 interruptions every single day.
Wait, 56 interruptions a day. If you do the math on a standard 8-hour workday, that is an interruption every 8.5 minutes.
It's staggering.
You can't even open a complex spreadsheet and remember what you were doing yesterday in 8 minutes.
And that's the core issue right there.
Yeah.
You physically cannot load a complex problem into your working memory in that time frame. The cognitive cost of trying to do so is severe.
Because the human brain just isn't built to toggle like that, right?
Exactly. It's not built to seamlessly toggle between vastly different contexts. Because workers are constantly switching from a document to a chat ping, back to the document, and then an email. They're losing up to 40% of their total productivity purely to multitasking.
Wow. 40%.
Yeah. They are spending their entire professional lives in a state of continuous partial attention.
So we basically have an entire global workforce running on a fraction of their actual brain power. And, the timing of this is incredibly dangerous.
How so?
Well, we have this massive, widespread cognitive inefficiency happening at the exact moment that artificial intelligence is hitting its stride. I keep picturing AI like a highly efficient factory assembly line that just moved right into the office space.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right, all those routine, logistical, shallow tasks you mentioned.
The scheduling, the basic emails.
Exactly. The AI machinery can do that instantly and for pennies.
Which completely commoditizes that type of labor. When technology removes the easiest, most repetitive parts of our jobs, the work that is left over demands intense, expert-level thinking.
AI handles the shallows, so humans are forced into the deep end.
Right. The deep end, where synthesis, complex strategy, and deep empathy are required. But because our daily environment is built around those 8-minute interruption cycles, very few people actually have the cognitive discipline to do that work.
Okay, so if everyone around you is existing in this permanent state of cognitive impairment, constantly checking Slack, doesn't just being slightly focused give you a massive market edge?
The advantage it gives you is almost difficult to comprehend, honestly. It's because of how modern markets distribute rewards. We're all conditioned to think that financial rewards are linear.
Like, if I work 10% harder, I get a 10% higher salary.
Exactly. But in a digital, globalized economy, the rewards for deep work are actually exponential. It's driven by an economic principle called the superstar effect.
Okay, let me guess how this works. In an old school economy, if you were the second best accountant in a small town, you still got plenty of clients because the best accountant was just too busy.
Right, the rewards were spread out locally.
But on a global scale, that local limitation is gone.
It is entirely gone. Technology allows top practitioners to scale their output massively at a very low marginal cost. Think about software development or high-stakes consulting,
Oh, I see.
because the cost of accessing that professional isn't restricted by geography anymore. The market exhibits something called imperfect substitution.
Meaning consumers won't just accept a cheaper, lower quality alternative. I mean, if my company is facing a bet the company lawsuit, I don't want 3 mediocre lawyers who cost less.
You want the one absolute superstar who never loses.
Exactly.
And that is the driving mechanism. People overwhelmingly prefer premium quality. Because of this dynamic, a professional whose output is just 10% better than their peers doesn't just get a 10% raise.
Wait, what do they get?
They might capture 1,000% more in earnings. Extreme focus pushes the quality of your work past a critical threshold, propelling you into that top decile. It's a winner-takes-all scenario.
That mathematical reality is, well, it's incredibly harsh. Income convexity, right?
Yes, income convexity.
So if a software developer writes code that is just a fraction cleaner, or a marketer builds a slightly more insightful strategy because they actually focus, they catapult into an entirely different tax bracket.
And the rest of the market is just fighting over the scraps left behind.
Wow. But how do we actually become that 10% better superstar? I know from experience you can't just like drink a third cup of coffee, stare at your monitor, and will yourself into being a genius.
No amount of caffeine will do that.
Right. There has to be a physical mechanism. What is actually happening inside the brain when we shut out the world and focus?
To understand that, you have to look at the neurobiology. When you push your cognitive capabilities to their absolute limit, you aren't just trying harder, you're triggering a physical, structural upgrade in your brain.
A structural upgrade.
Yes. Specifically, you are stimulating the growth of a substance called myelin.
Okay, myelin. I've heard this described as the biological secret weapon of elite performers.
It really is the biological foundation of skill. Myelin is a layer of fatty tissue that grows around the axons of your neuroyorkets. When you focus deeply, you force specific neural circuits to fire repeatedly in isolation.
Okay.
And your brain recognizes that repeated firing and responds by wrapping those specific circuits in this myelin tissue.
You know, it sounds a lot like wrapping electrical tape around a frayed wire. Like, if the wire is exposed, the electrical signal leaks out and loses power.
Yes.
But when you wrap it in thick insulation, the signal travels faster, cleaner, and with way more force.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. The more myelin you build, the faster and more efficiently your brain processes that specific information. You are fundamentally hardwiring excellence into your biological architecture.
That's how grandmasters and elite programmers learn so fast.
Exactly. But the catch is that myelination only happens when you are intensely focused on a single task. If you're constantly shifting your attention, the neural firing is fragmented.
The brain gets confused about what matters, right?
Right. And myelination simply does not happen.
Which brings us to the terrifying opposite of this. If deep work builds cognitive wealth through myelin, distraction must levy a heavy biological tax.
Oh, the distraction tax is devastating to your earning potential. Cognitive researchers have identified a phenomenon called attention residue.
Attention residue, what is that exactly?
Well, when you switch your attention from a demanding task, say writing a complex strategy document, to doing a quick check of your email, your attention doesn't cleanly snap to the new task.
It lingers.
Yes, a thick residue of your attention remains stuck on the strategy document. And when you switch back a minute later, a significant part of your brain is still stuck processing the email.
I think of this exactly like having too many heavy background apps running on a smartphone.
That's exactly what it feels like.
Right. You might swipe away from a demanding game to open your texts, but that game is still running. It's eating up the RAM, draining the battery. You think you've moved on, but your processor is totally bogged down.
And the data on that cognitive lag is incredibly clear. It takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds for your brain to fully clear that attention residue.
Wait, 23 minutes to recover from one quick notification ping?
Yes, 23 minutes and 15 seconds after a single interruption. The brain has to completely reload the context of the complex problem back into your working memory, which is a really slow, energy-intensive process.
And if we connect this back to what you said earlier, that the average worker is interrupted every 8.5 minutes.
It means most professionals literally never reach a state of full focus at any point in their workday.
Never. That is wild.
Furthermore, studies indicate that this constant barrage of attention residue can temporarily lower your effective IQ by up to 15 points. You are artificially lowering your own intelligence by leaving your inbox open.
A 15-point drop. That's the equivalent of trying to solve complex problems after staying awake for 36 hours straight. It's literally like working drunk.
It is.
So, if we know we have this biological imperative to focus, but our offices and phones are optimized to steal our attention, how do we survive? How do we protect this cognitive wealth?
We have to transition from understanding the biology to implementing aggressive strategy. You cannot leave your focus to chance. Elite earners view their productivity through a very specific formula.
What's the formula?
High-quality work produced equals the time spent, multiplied by the intensity of focus.
Okay, let me look at that. High quality work equals time spent times intensity of focus. Most people just try to increase the time spent variable, right?
Exactly. They grind longer hours, work through the weekends.
They answer emails at 10 p.m. and eventually they just burn out because time is rigidly finite. You only have 24 hours.
But the superstar earners realize that the other variable, the intensity of focus, can be scaled massively. By pushing their focus to its absolute maximum, they drastically reduce the time required to produce high-value results.
So they get more done in a 3-hour deep work session than a distracted colleague gets done in a whole 50-hour work week.
Precisely. Structural workflow optimization is actually a wealth multiplier.
So what do these strategic architectures look like in practice?
Well, these top earners systemize their environments to aggressively manufacture the conditions for myelination. Some adopt bimodal scheduling.
Bimodal scheduling, like 2 different modes.
Yeah, they dedicate consecutive days, say Tuesday and Wednesday, to pure, isolated deep work, completely off the grid. And they leave Thursday and Friday for the shallow logistical tasks.
Oh, that makes sense.
Others utilize strict time blocking. Instead of a calendar filled with scattered meetings, they build a rigid map of focused pulses to reliably access the flow state.
Flow state. That psychological zone where time dilates, attention residue drops to 0, and your brain is just bathing in myelin growth.
Yeah.
But I have to push back here on behalf of everyone listening.
Go ahead.
It sounds beautiful in theory, but workplace data shows the average person toggles between different apps 1,200 times a day and spends 57% of their time just communicating about work.
That is the reality for most, yes.
So how are you supposed to practically time block when your boss expects an immediate response on Slack?
Navigating that exact friction is what makes the ability to focus so financially valuable in the first place. You have to start treating your attention like a scarce financial resource.
Meaning you have to have difficult conversations with your boss.
Yes, proactive conversations about asynchronous communication. You frame the boundary entirely around the value you are delivering to them.
Okay, give us the actual script for that. Because if I just ignore my boss for 4 hours to go build myelin, I'm going to get fired.
Right. You don't say, I need to turn off Slack because I'm overwhelmed. You say, to ensure this Q3 strategy report is absolutely flawless and delivered by Friday, I need to go heads down and offline from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Oh, I see.
I will process all messages at 11:01. If there is a literal emergency, here's my direct cell number.
That's a brilliant psychological flip. You aren't asking for a break. You are protecting their investment in your output. You're trading the illusion of constant productivity for actual impact.
Exactly. It might cause some slight logistical friction, but the output you deliver is 10 times more valuable. And when you successfully implement this, you fundamentally transform your professional leverage.
You transition from a standard participant into an undisputed authority.
Yes. This is the concept of resource leverage. When you can consistently produce complex work that distracted people cannot replicate, you gain extreme scarcity value.
Because you're the only one solving the hard problems. The AI is handling the easy stuff, the distracted workers are running in circles, but you are doing the deep synthesis.
And that specialized expertise creates a highly favorable BATNA in any negotiation.
BATNA. Best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So this is your safety net.
It is.
You have the psychological power of knowing that if your company doesn't value you, you can easily walk away because the market desperately needs what you do.
The power to walk away changes everything. You are far less vulnerable to corporate intimidation. You can take creative risks. And most importantly, you can effectively name your price.
You're not just asking for a standard 3% cost of living raise.
No, you are demanding value based on your irreplaceable output. If they don't give you what you want, you take your highly myelinated brain somewhere else.
And they're left trying to replace you with 3 distracted people who can't actually do the job? You're transforming your professional identity from a commodity into a rare asset.
Whether that means premium salaries, higher consulting rates, or lucrative equity stakes, deep workers dictate the terms.
It's an incredible shift in perspective. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We've spent this discussion focusing heavily on the financial ROI of deep work.
The exponential earnings, the leverage.
Right. But consider this. This same cognitive discipline might be the key to a much richer human experience across the board. If our attention is constantly fractured by notifications and scrolling, we aren't just losing money.
We're losing a lot more than that.
We might be losing our capacity for deep empathy. We lose our ability to be truly present in meaningful relationships, and we lose the chance to find a sense of true craftsmanship in our daily lives. Deep work isn't just about building deep pockets. It's about cultivating a deep life.
I couldn't agree more. A fractured mind simply cannot fully appreciate the nuances of a complex professional problem, nor can it appreciate a quiet moment with family. The discipline to focus improves both.
Attention is the absolute currency of our lives, not just our bank accounts. Where you choose to spend it dictates the quality of everything you experience. This was it on today's topic, guys. Kindly subscribe and follow us for more such insights on various discussion on money. And also, do not forget to join our social media community to stay in touch and get updated.